Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. To some of you and peace out to the rest of you. The blackest hearted, blackest minded, blackest man on social media signing black in and shining again, asking you to hit the mother cuss word share button because the message is more important than the messenger. Now, I'm going to start by saying that MTR brought up a valid point on his upload, in which he said that when he records and uploads about the games women play, he gets all these views, and that when he records about making money and the milestones of becoming six figures, he gets fewer views. And I want to clarify why that is. And I'm not saying it's to fuss at MTR, but I'm saying it's to answer the point, because there's a valid reason for this. And one example is that I don't know. Hold on, there's a deputy's car behind me, so I gotta be careful. Give me a moment. Father Muck, man, I thought that was a cop car. Turns out to be somebody from Montana in a similar vehicle, but it's a civilian. My bad, y'all. So anyway, MTR recorded about this, and I'm going to tell you all why it is that this is a valid pattern that you see. Now, I've recorded several times, and I've said that Islam is the solution, and it gets fewer views. But then people, I got Muslims hitting me up under the comments of various uploads, whether the word Islam is in the title or not, and they say, yes, Salam alaikum, keep preaching, things of that nature. So there are Muslims that are listening. So sometimes I don't get views on these uploads in which I say clearly, and it's in the title, that Islam is the solution for us, because I have Muslim audience members who don't have to hear that. Other times it's because there are many of you that don't want to hear that, and your reasons could be good or bad, but usually it boils down to the fact that really none of us wants to exercise discipline. Now, when it comes to making money, I understand that making money does require some discipline. Money gets up and runs away from you. It does not come running towards you. I get that. There's more. Unfortunately, when it comes down to it, it is easier to deal with just about anything in life other than how to make a big sum of money when you're not old. This is not easy to deal with. I know this is a difficult subject for a lot of us, but there are going to be times when, people talk about investments in front of me. I don't know what they're talking about. I can't follow it. I don't know the terminology. Crypto is only, digital or cryptocurrencies have only confused me even more at this point. And apparently governments can move in and stifle the trade in these too. I just don't understand them the way that I understand other technologies that are available now. When everything became internet-based, I understood that, because I was allowed to grow with that technology. I was at the age in which I was old enough to understand how things work without them. I was also old enough to understand, young enough to learn the new technologies. I was not overwhelmed by them. Digital currencies came out at a time when I was overwhelmed by other things, and now all these new things come out in their terms for this, and I can't keep up. Now, I can explain certain things to my dad about technology, but some things I still have to show him because the vocabulary does not mean anything to him. I'm talking over his head, and he has to say that doesn't mean anything to me. But if you show me, I'll get it. And I show him, and he gets it. And that's because when these technologies are largely internet and every other technology based on it and every other procedure based on it became available, he was already about as old as I am now. A little older, actually. So all of a sudden, everything's becoming automated. And in the span of 2 years, things you could get done over the phone by calling someone, you now cannot get done over the phone. By calling someone, you have to call into an automated menu. And then even then, for several years, you could hit 0 and get someone on the phone, somebody with a pulse. that could walk him through it. Now he hits 0 and the menu say, I'm sorry, that wasn't a valid option. And he's sitting up saying representative, operative. What? The menus don't even want to bring you through to a live person. And old people are not going to sit up and listen while you talk about this stuff to each other and follow you. They're not even going to devote their attention to it. They're going to say, yep, you're talking over my head. Let me go back and watch my stories. Is it because they hate you? No, but they don't understand what you're talking about. Now, I want to also point this out too. It's the same thing with money. Money is something that gets up and it runs, and it has always done so. So I understand why you record something about money and you get fewer views. There are men who know what you're talking about. They know enough to where they can learn more from you because they at least understand what you mean. And there are men who don't know anything at all about it. The only ones that are going to listen to that are the ones who know enough from before to learn more from you. That's it. The ones who already know what you're talking about and explaining, and the ones who don't understand any of it at all are going to be the two who don't listen. When I teach English, there are going to be students that don't understand anything I'm talking about because they don't speak the basic English. They don't have it. They're not going to understand anything until I start explaining everything in Arabic. They won't get it because they don't even know yes or no. And Bedouins, well, I mean, they take pride in not knowing stuff. Chris Rock talked about ninjas not knowing stuff and being proud of it. Man, I don't know that bit. That's what he said on a comedy skit. How long ago was that? 1999. It's 22 years ago I saw it for the first time. It might have been out in 1998, but I saw it in 1999. It's still funny today. That was when he was talking about the difference between black folks and niches. What I call the idness, which you call the pookies and the ray-rays, or the N-words, or some of us still call them jigaboos, porch monkeys, spooks and spades. I don't prefer to use the term spade or spook, because a spook to me is a spy or a ghost. And a spade, well, I mean, that's something that you use as a tool. Plus, some people have the last name Spade. I am a spook, and I've been a spook on behalf of black people for a long time. Not even intentionally. I've simply sat and listened to what non-black people say, and I've learned a good bit. And I've been able to sit up and tell you, these are the ones that just kind of don't like you. These are the ones that hate you. These are the ones that are willing to take you as you come on an individual basis. These are the ones that have some sympathy for you as a whole, but they ain't gonna take no crap off you individually. See, I can say this type of stuff because I've been a spook, not because I'm black. I've been a spy on your behalf because apparently I wasn't black enough to raise alarms every time people mentioned us. So when you start talking and you explain something, the people that are going to listen are going to be the ones who know something, but they don't know exactly what you're going to say until they hear you say it. Then they will come along. They're at the step before the step you are explaining. They're at the previous step. That's why they're listening. The ones that are far ahead, they already know. They ain't even dissing you. They don't mean you no harm, but they're far beyond you. When I'm talking and teaching English, I'm not teaching people who speak English as a first language. They don't need the class. I'm teaching the ones for whom it is a second language. I'm also not teaching the ones that don't know ABC and 1, 2, 3 yet. I can't explain it to them. They need someone that can explain the basics to them in Arabic first. I can't do that. And if I did, they wouldn't understand anyway, because when they usually first start off and all they know is Arabic and they're Bedouins, they can't even understand Arabic spoken by a non-Arab because they can only understand it with their accent. Much like some really countrified Yankee, salt of the earth. Well, I shouldn't say Yankee because that means a northerner in the States. I'm sorry. I meant really countrified white American, salt of the earth types can't understand English if you speak it with a foreign accent. Like it's English. They just don't understand it because you have an accent that shows that you have another language as your first language. English is your second language, even when you speak it. And they're just like, speak English. And they're real ignorant with it. And they're mad because you don't sound like them. Yeah, better ones can be similar. Maybe not mad, but the better ones can be similar in that they don't understand you. You strange to them. And why should you expect them to understand you? You don't sound like them. And they don't have a mindset as to which, they don't have a clue as to what you've been through to learn Arabic as a second language. There is a very small profile that's going to listen when you explain something that technical. The ones who know nothing of what you're talking about, and that's me when you're talking about investments and how to earn money without laboring or without trading a skill for it. And then those who are far beyond you ain't got a reason to listen. So yeah, I get it. Now, when I say Islam is the solution, because you're talking about forever, I would think that people would pay more attention. But I have to admit, there are people that don't listen for a different set of reasons than what I might think. There are people that don't listen when I say that because they're not interested at all. They don't want to do anything that requires more self-discipline. They may not hate you. They're not trying to harm you, but you're talking about something that requires self-restraint, self-discipline, some more rules, and that ain't what they're there for. Sergeant Willie Pete is one of those. He wants to dig different women out without being married to them. Now, many people may want to do this, but he has decided this is the route he will go, and he's not going to go any route that tells you you don't drink, and you don't smoke, and you don't fornicate. And he may not be a heavy drinker, and he may not be a smoker at all. But for us to come along and say you don't do these things, and then also say you don't fornicate either, well, that's just too much for him. And that doesn't make him different. That makes him actually very typical in that regard. A lot of people find that to be too much. The difference is we find that to be too much because we've been through enough hardship. We sit up and say, I don't need any more. The European Americans, Western Europeans, and their American descendants don't want to hear this coming from us because we're darker than them. They don't want to hear it at all, but especially from someone darker than them. And when you're one of them who's accepted Islam and you tell them this, they still get angry because now you're a traitor and you sound like these people that are darker. And they're not going to listen. But then there are others in my audience that are already Muslim. I got plenty that are Muslim, and they've been Muslim longer than I have. And even they have spoken to me, encouraged me, Salam alaikum, Ak, keep preaching, keep giving a good word. They're these dudes. Now, they may see the recording and the title of the recording that tells you, yeah, Islam is the solution that we're looking for. But you see, when they see this, for them, it's a little different because they'll see it and they'll say, well, yeah, I know that. So they just don't listen to the whole thing. And that's fine, because they ain't got to. They already know it's the solution. They trying to tell some people in their family that it's the solution for our people, not even just for an individual, but for our people. That's what it's like. So I understand why. You start talking about the games that women play and you got a bunch of people listening. I got a bunch of people listening. And then MTR, you got a bunch of people listening. Well, there are going to be more men that listen to this because this is something every man's going to go through. Even men, hell, especially men that are virgins. Whether they're voluntarily sold for religious reasons or whether they just can't get them draws off because women that are not religious, women that are even thoughts and sluts and hoes, just want to be difficult for somebody. It's the same thing. Men are going to see that women will play games, and it won't even necessarily be for any good reason. They'll be playing games because they want to play games. Because they want to get a lot out of men without dropping them jaws and draining his testes. That's what's going on here. And they feel like they should be able to. That's what Blue Jasmine pretty much told us. Blue Jasmine said as much. Blue Jasmine set up and said to us that she should be able to get the same lifestyle and keep that same lifestyle when she's done with a man. She could break up with him. He still needs to pay that lifestyle. These are gynocentric and gynocratic and feminist laws on the books. That's why you had an attorney in India, from India, telling Indian men, if a woman wants to marry you, don't marry her and then divorce her, because once you marry her, even if it's only a few months, you are liable for alimony until one of you dies or she remarries. Now, if a woman can be a slut and a thought and a hoe, and have a man she doesn't even want paying her, not only is she going to be a slut and a thought and a hoe, she's going to be one for free. So every time one of these so-called alphas gets the biscuits innards, or as Mr. Clinkscales would say, the sweet watery guts. Look, every time a brother gets one of those and he's not being given a headache in some way, form, or fashion, a mild or big headache, somewhat usually a sizable headache, it is because someone else is paying. Someone else has the headache and ain't getting the guts. Even good women have this stipulation, have a stipulation in between. They got a stipulation of stress for these guts. So if you ain't just kicking out a lot and losing a lot because of your experience enjoying her insides, then the least she will settle for, as I've said before, the least she will settle for. The least for which she will settle. Sorry about that. I'm an English teacher and I need to speak like one. The least for which she will settle will be something that harms you even when it does not benefit her. She will settle for you being harmed without her gaining anything. Your pain is her gain, or she wants your pain as her gain, even though she needs them draws too. And see, when I say that Islam is the solution for us, one reason I think it's a bit more pertinent for us as a whole than when, and it's more important for men to hear it than when we hear a video about how to make the money, is because, number one, again, money's going to get up and run. And wealth is relative, and so is poverty. It's okay for us to find ways to make more money, but the minute all of us make above a certain amount, then that amount of money just becomes less anyway. That's what that means. It is not our job, again, to get the money for these broads. It is our job to get the money because that's what we have to do for life in general. But it is women's job to prioritize their own libidos over their materialism. That is their job. It is their job to learn to respect their husband's needs below the belt and their own, and prioritize the husband's needs and their own over their materialism. The materialism could be right. Well, actually, the materialism is usually not right. It can be natural, but it's not necessarily right to indulge. They're supposed to indulge in their lust. And they're supposed to indulge their husband's lust. They're supposed to satisfy both. And this is something that bothers a lot of them, not even because it hurts them. It bothers a lot of them, even good women. It bothers them because it benefits men. If you are a man and you ain't making a lot of money, so further mucking what? If you ain't married to her, yeah, y'all don't owe each other anything. That means you don't owe her either. But if you're married, she owes you them draws. And if she calls you on it, you owe her them draws too. You do owe it to her unless she voluntarily relieves you of this responsibility and abdicates it. You do owe her to take care of her financially, but you do not owe her a specific lifestyle. Not at all. You never did. You owe her according to your means. You don't owe her according to her own materialism. And this is what needs to be understood. Remember, gentlemen, you don't owe her, even when you are married, according to her materialism. Even when you're married, you owe her according to your means. Because remember, God is fair. Mankind might not be, but Allah is fair. And these are the rules he made, and this was even understood by many Christians and even by many Jews. Most men ain't been wealthy. Most men ain't been high value financially speaking. Most men ain't been high value in terms of height. Most men are normal. And that's what women have had to choose from. Now, we know they'd rather share the few men they all want. We understand that, but that doesn't mean that we have to indulge that. Women, it's not up to us, again, and it's not up to us to try to climb the chain of value necessarily for them. It ain't even up to us to try to climb the chain of value if you make the effort and you find that it ain't working for you. Even then, that's not your job. It is up to you to do your best, and you live with that. And you live with the results that God gave you at the end. You are not to blame for anything beyond that. You never were. And I'm sick and tired of hearing some people talk about how important it is. Now, Kevin Samuels had a valid point. Kevin Samuels did say, look, money is important. I'm not saying that it's not either. We both are saying the same thing. But by the same token, that doesn't mean that women have the right to be materialistic in their standards. They just don't. They have the option. They can choose that, but that's going to eliminate their chances, or it's going to eliminate many men for them. Some say, well, that's fine. It just means I'm expensive. A Porsche ain't for everybody. Yeah, but every car ain't a Porsche either. Most cars are not. Most cars are neither Porsche, nor BMW, nor Benzes, nor Ferraris, nor Maseratis, nor Lamborghinis. Most cars are not any of these. Not only are these cars rarely sold, they're rarely made because many of them ain't going to sell. Now, the makers have decided that they're going to charge what they charge. They're not trying to compete in terms of price with each other. That's okay. But by the same token, they put some pretty expensive materials and designs into the engines as well. That they do. And even those cars are going to deteriorate. This is something for the ladies to understand. It is not your job to try to shield them from having to deal with these tough choices. And I'm saying this for no selfish reasons, because you see me, I am a happily married man. And I mean happily married. So when I'm saying this, it ain't about me. It might be about the man I used to be and what I had to go through, but it ain't about me now today. But it is about you not having to go through this, be you a young man or an old man. It's about things you should not have to go through. And I'm not telling you to put the women that are sticking with you and loyal to you through the same things either. But I am saying that all of us got to make tough choices. The women don't get an exemption from this because they're women. They're supposed to have to deal with some tough choices, even in men, even when we love them. And it does not make you a failure because they had to make some tough choices. It makes them a failure if they assume that they should never have to. And that's why it is that men are going to listen when we start talking about the games women play, and fewer men are going to listen when you start talking about money and investments. And I mean, it's good, but you're not given a beginner's class. And a lot of men don't know the basic vocabulary of these things. I don't. Many other men don't. We just don't know. And they're not going to. It's going to be that way. I have to realistically accept I'm talking about a solution for us in this life and in the next life to come. But I have to accept and prepare for the fact that fewer men are going to listen to that than they are going to listen when I talk about these games women play. And as a matter of fact, one of the reasons that a lot of men don't want to hear anything about any religion is because you don't have a religion telling you to be a player and get out there and learn these women and learn the games that they're going to play firsthand. You don't have a religion telling you this. But you got to know what games they're going to play because they're going to play them. A lot of men think that religion inherently and therefore God is unfair to men. It's not true, but that's what a lot of men feel because that's what their experience has been. And this is why it is that a lot of men ain't going to listen when I talk about religion. I could have said Islam or Judaism is the solution for black people. I mean, I could have said Christianity or Judaism were solutions for black people, and a lot of them would not have listened, because they're only going to listen when you have something that says, learn the games women play, because they gonna play them regardless of their religion. The thing is, what a lot of men don't understand is that in Islam, you're not to go and be a player per se, but you are certainly allowed to know the games they're gonna play. And that men are allowed, whether it's a man that's been married several times and therefore women would consider him to be a failure, or if he's a man that ain't never been married, in which case women would say he's a failure. Men are allowed to share the information about the games that women are going to play. And women, if they fifagack about the male relatives in their lives, are required to share this information, at the very least with their sons. That's in our faith. It's not explicit. It's just as simple as be honest, be fair. We were told certain rules about how to marry and even how to divorce. If you got a divorce, do it peaceably. Don't slander each other to the community. So, with that being said, there's no rule saying, there's no verse in the Quran saying you must know the games that women play, but what there is an understanding that you got to be fair and just. And being fair and just nowadays requires that Muslims sit down and tell their sons, maybe even nephews, younger brothers, younger cousins, but certainly their sons, these are the games that women will play if they can do so. These are the interests that they have, and even if they're not fair to you, these are their interests, and if they can get away with it, they're going to go after those interests at your expense. And this is how critical and tough we are on men, even when you don't deserve it and when you haven't done anything wrong. This is how we are. Or this is how they're going to be. And they're not doing it. So as Muslims, we can call them out based on that simply because we know it. And we don't have to be patient with this stuff. I'm not required to be patient with the foolish games they're going to play. I have every right to turn around and say, no, cuss word. You knew further mucking well what you were doing. I don't need to be patient. You need to be more honest and fuck the shuck up with these lies and start telling the truth, even if it's against you. Because men who are good men will sit up and say, well, even if I won't do these things, baby girl, and I didn't do this to your mother, the fact is that there's still men out there that are going to try to do X, Y, and Z. Even if they're not 30% of the male population, that whatever percent they are is going to be out there and readily available. Easy for you to find, even if they're a minority. And this is why it is. We have to face the facts, MTR. Men are going to listen when you start talking about women because they understand it is a valid concern. You talk about money, that's great. It doesn't mean that the men are dissing you or dissing your concept per se, but that's something that's technical, and therefore the men that are going to listen are going to be the ones that are at the step in before the one you are explaining in whichever recording it is. That's why. Same thing for me with Islam. It involves a spiritual search for many African Americans who become Muslim on their own. And some of them are at that step before where they become Muslim, and then they hear me and it helps them. But there are others who are way beyond that step, and there are others who ain't even got started. And that's why they don't listen. It's not necessarily any harm that they mean. I certainly don't mean any harm. Not at all. But I do what I can about the money. I do the best I know how to do legally. But I'll be honest with you, man. In the end, what happens if all of us made this money? Suppose all men made this money. All that's going to happen is that the younger men are going to have a rough time because the women are going to demand even more. So the men may be able to make some money, but even then in the regular marketplace, the money, same amount of money is now going to buy less because now all men have it. So that's still going to be an issue. And men aren't required to be patient with stuff like that. What we men are required to do is to be honest and fair and just, and to treat women fairly and justly too. Now that we're required to do. We're not required to get out there and make a certain income or promise them a certain standard of living. They need to choose between satisfying their clitoris and satisfying their pocketbooks. And their egos too. If they don't want to do any of the work and they still want to enjoy a nice lifestyle, then they're going to be sharing the few men that can afford to do this. And that's still going to mean they're sharing his resources with other women too. It ain't gonna come, what they want ain't gonna come for free, and we don't need to be trying to satisfy that particular desire of theirs, because it ain't realistic. It's not wrong, it's just not realistic. At least we understand, and we have reasonable limits as to what we demand and expect. We're still light years ahead of him in that regard. Thank you for listening. Black Heart, Black Mind, Blackout, Assalamu Alaikum, and Black Heterosexual Non-Select Male Power just because they don't like it, and Black Patriarchy until extinction or Judgment Day.